What happens when an entitled HOA Karen tries to kick a homeowner out of their own backyard, all because she hates garden gnomes? Chaos. When her fake cop son shows up to arrest the owner, things spiral until one phone call changes everything. What follows is karma, justice, and a plot twist no one saw coming. You won't believe how this wild backyard showdown ends. It was a perfectly ordinary Tuesday afternoon in the sleepy English village of Little Hampstead, nestled in the rolling green hills of Gloucestershire. The sun hung low, casting golden streaks across my backyard, a modest patch of land I'd turned into a sanctuary for my prized gnome collection. I was out there, as usual, fussing over them, polishing Mr. Winklebottom's pointy hat, adjusting Norman's fishing rod, and debating whether Gunelda needed a new coat of paint on her rosy cheeks. My gnomes weren't just decorations. They were family, each with a personality I'd lovingly crafted over years. Sure, they were a bit oversized. Some stood nearly 3 feet tall. But that's what made them special. I was humming to myself, lost in my little world, when the gate creaked open with a sound that could wake the dead. I turned, and there she was. Karen Whitmore, self-proclaimed queen of the Little Hampstead Homeowners Association. She stormed in, her floral dress flapping like a battle flag, clutching a yappy little dog under her arm. Princess Wiggles, she called it, though it looked more like a gremlin with a bow. Her face was a mask of righteous fury, lips pursed so tight I thought they might vanish. "Mr. Patel," she barked, her voice sharp enough to slice through the afternoon calm. "You need to remove yourself and these abominations from this property immediately. They're a blight on our community's aesthetic standards." I blinked, setting down my polishing rag. "Good afternoon to you too, Karen. I own this house. I pay my dues. And last I checked, there's no HOA rule against garden gnomes." She huffed, clutching Princess Wiggles tighter as the dog snarled at Norman. "Don't you dare lecture me about rules, Vikram. I am the rules around here. These oversized trolls are an eyesore, and I won't stand for it." I tried to keep it civil. Really, I did. "Karen, they're just gnomes. They're not hurting anyone. Maybe you should relax, have a cuppa, and we can talk this out." That was a mistake. Her eyes narrowed to slits and she unleashed a tirade that could have peeled paint off a barn. "How dare you speak to me like that? You think you can just waltz into our village with your foreign nonsense and ruin everything? I'll have you out of here by sundown." She spun on her heel, Princess Wiggles yipping in triumph, and marched off. I stood there, dumbfounded, watching her disappear around the hedge. Foreign nonsense? I'd lived in Little Hampstead for 15 years, longer than Karen, who'd only moved in from London 5 years ago with her airs and graces. Shaking my head, I went back to my gnomes, figuring she'd cool off eventually. I was wrong. 20 minutes later, I heard the crunch of boots on gravel. A shadow loomed over Mr. Winklebottom, and I looked up to see a man in a poorly fitted police uniform, too tight around the gut, too loose at the shoulders, glaring down at me. He had a badge pinned crookedly to his chest and a swagger that screamed overcompensation. "Oi, you!" he bellowed, jabbing a finger at me. "Step away from them gnomes and show me some ID now." I straightened up, crossing my arms. "And who might you be?" "Constable Derek Whitmore," he snapped, puffing out his chest. "You're in violation of HOA regulations, mate. Move it, or I'll have you nicked." I squinted at him. Whitmore. Of course. Karen's son, unemployed, living in her basement, and known around the village for his failed attempts at starting a vape shop. The uniform looked like something he'd nabbed from a costume shop, And that badge? It had "Made in China" stamped on the back if you looked close enough. This wasn't law enforcement. This was a power trip. "Derek," I said calmly, "I'm not breaking any laws. This is my property, and I'm pretty sure impersonating a police officer is a crime." His face turned beet red. "You calling me a liar? Step back, or I'll cuff you right here." That's when things got weird. He reached for his belt, where a pair of toy handcuffs dangled, and I couldn't help it. I laughed. Big mistake. Derek lunged at me, tripping over Gnelda and crashing into Mr. Winklebottom, who toppled with a tragic thud. I shouted, "Watch it!" But Derek was already scrambling up, yelling about resisting arrest. Karen reappeared at the gate, egging him on. "Get him, Derek! Teach him a lesson!" Princess Wiggles barked like a tiny air raid siren. I backed away, hands up. "This is ridiculous. I'm calling someone who can sort this out." Derek sneered. "Go ahead, mate. Call your mummy. Won't help you now." But I wasn't calling my mum. I pulled out my phone and dialed Sterling, my old uni-mate, now a hotshot FBI agent working cross-border cases with Interpol. He'd been stationed in London for the past year, and we'd kept in touch. The line rang twice before his crisp American accent came through. "Vic? What's up?" "Mate," I said, keeping an eye on Derek, who was dusting gnome dirt off his fake uniform. "I've got a situation here. HOA. Karen and her son are trying to arrest me over my garden gnomes. He's pretending to be a cop." Sterling didn't miss a beat. "Stay put. I'll make a call." 10 minutes later, the real cavalry arrived. The sound of tires on gravel snapped me out of my standoff with Derek. Two sleek black SUVs rolled up the lane, their engines purring with authority. Karen froze mid-rant, her mouth hanging open like a fish out of water, while Derek fumbled with his toy handcuffs, trying to look official. Princess Wiggles yapped furiously, sensing the shift in power. The doors swung open, and out stepped three figures. Two uniformed constables from Gloucestershire Police, real ones this time, with proper badges and no-nonsense expressions, and a tall, broad-shouldered man in a sharp suit. Sterling. His dark hair was slicked back, and his aviators glinted in the fading sunlight. He looked every bit the FBI agent, exuding a calm that made Derek's bluster seem like a toddler's tantrum. "Vikram Patel!" one of the constables called, a woman with a clipped accent and a notepad already in hand. "That's me," I said, stepping forward, careful not to trip over Mr. Winklebottom's shattered remains. "Thanks for coming." Karen recovered her voice, jabbing a finger at me. "Officers, arrest this man! He's defying HOA regulations and assaulted my son!" Sterling raised an eyebrow, glancing at Derek, who was now sweating through his costume. "Assault, huh? Looks like your son's the one assaulting garden decor." Derek sputtered. "I'm a constable. He resisted arrest." The female constable, PC Hargreaves, her badge read, stepped closer, peering at Derek's uniform. "Mind showing me your warrant card, Constable Whitmore?" Derek's bravado crumbled. I left it at home. But I'm legit, I swear." Sterling smirked, pulling out his own ID, a gleaming FBI badge with Interpol credentials attached. "Funny thing, Derek, I had a quick chat with my mates at Scotland Yard on the way here. They ran your name. No record of a Constable Derek Whitmore. But there is a Derek Whitmore with a history of petty theft and a restraining order from the vape shop fiasco last year." Karen shrieked, "This is outrageous! You can't talk to my son like that! We're protecting this village from people like him!" She waved a hand at me, her meaning clear as day. The second constable, a burly man named PC Jones, crossed his arms. "People like him? Care to elaborate, Mrs. Whitmore?" She faltered, clutching Princess Wiggles like a shield. I just mean outsiders, people who don't respect our way of life. I couldn't hold back anymore. Karen, I've lived here longer than you. I'm a bloody accountant, not a revolutionary. These gnomes aren't a threat to your way of life. Sterling stepped in, his voice low but firm. Mrs. Whitmore, impersonating an officer is a serious offense. So's harassment. Vic's within his rights. Private property, no HOA bylaws breached. You, however, are treading on thin ice. Derek, panicking, made a break for it. He bolted toward the gate, tripped over Gunelda again, and face-planted into the hydrangeas. P.C. Jones hauled him up, snapping real handcuffs on his wrists. You're nicked, mate. Let's sort this at the station. Karen wailed. You can't do this. I'll sue. I'll call my lawyer. P.C. Hargreaves sighed, scribbling in her notepad. You do that, ma'am. Meanwhile, we'll need you to come with us too. Witness statements and all. As they escorted a shrieking Karen and a sulking Derek to the SUVs, Sterling clapped me on the shoulder. You okay, Vic? Yeah, I said, surveying the carnage. Mr. Winklebottom in pieces, Gunelda listing to one side. Just another day in paradise. He chuckled. Karma's a hell of a thing. Want a beer? I've got a six-pack in the car. Mate, you're a lifesaver. Word spread through Little Hampstead like wildfire. By Wednesday morning, the village was buzzing, half with outrage, half with glee. The local pub, the Rusty Plough, became gossip central. I walked in that evening, Sterling at my side, and the room went quiet for a split second before erupting into cheers. Old Mrs. Tinsley, who'd lived here since the war, raised her pint. To Vic and his gnomes, showed that stuck-up cow what's what. I grinned, accepting a pint from the barman. Cheers, everyone. Just glad it's over. But it wasn't. Not quite. The next day, a petition circulated, started by Karen's cronies in the HOA, demanding my gnomes be banned. It backfired spectacularly. Dozens of villagers showed up at my place with their own gnomes, planting them in solidarity. By Friday, my backyard was a gnome army, a riot of color and defiance. Even the vicar joined in, donating a cherubic gnome he'd named Saint Gnomacent. Karen, meanwhile, faced her own reckoning. Derek was charged with impersonating an officer and criminal mischief. Turns out he'd borrowed that uniform from a mate's Halloween stash. Karen got off with a warning, but the HOA stripped her of her presidency after a heated meeting where half the village aired decades of grievances. She retreated to her cottage, Princess Wiggles her only ally, glaring out the window at my gnome empire. Sterling stayed through the weekend, helping me repair Mr. Winklebottom with superglue and a lot of swearing. As we sat on my porch Sunday night, beers in hand, he said, You know, Vic, this wasn't just about gnomes. I nodded, staring at the stars. Yeah, it's the same old story, isn't it? Doesn't matter how long I've been here or what I do, they see the brown skin first. He sighed. Seen it too many times, mate. Back home, across the pond, here, it's everywhere. But you stood your ground, that's what counts. Monday brought a surprise. A letter arrived from the new HOA chair, a quiet bloke named Tom who'd always kept his head down. It was an apology, formal but sincere, promising to rewrite the bylaws for clarity and fairness. Tucked inside was a photo of Tom's own gnome, a cheeky fellow with a shovel captioned, Welcome to the club. I framed it next to my desk, a reminder of the absurdity and the victory. Life settled back into its rhythm, work, pub quizzes, gnome maintenance. But something lingered. Karen's words, her venom, echoed a truth I couldn't shake. Racism didn't need a megaphone. It thrived in the small stuff, the sideways glances, the "where are you really from" questions, the gnomes that somehow threatened her precious village. Months later, I saw her at the market, buying turnips. She avoided my gaze, but Princess Wiggles growled. I smiled, tipping my imaginary hat. "Morning, Karen. Lovely day, isn't it?" She muttered something and scurried off. I didn't need her approval. I had my gnomes, my mates, and a village that, for all its flaws, had shown it could grow. As spring rolled in, I added a new gnome to the crew. Gninja, a sleek black figure with a tiny badge, a nod to Sterling. The collection grew, and so did the stories. Whispers of other Karens, other Dereks, out there waiting. I'd be ready. The tale of the Gnome War became Little Hampstead legend, retold with embellishments at every pub night. But it left a question hanging in the air, one I couldn't answer alone. How many more Karens were out there, cloaking prejudice in petty rules? And who'd stand up next time? I sipped my tea, watching Gninja glint in the morning sun, and thought, maybe it starts with a gnome. Or maybe it's already started, and we're just catching up.